You face battles most never fought, pain, struggle, adversity. But here, we use that as fuel. This is the Battle Harder podcast, where we motivate, educate, and inspire warriors of life, veterans, survivors, leaders. We share stories and strategies to turn pain into progress. Here's your host, Coach Rob. Let's lock in and battle harder.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Battle Harder podcast, where I hope to motivate, educate, and inspire you to become the best version of yourself. Today, it's going to be my pleasure to have another coach on the show. And what I like about this is we're going to talk a little bit about imposter syndrome, and we're going to talk about the man, the myth, the legend, who is the founder of CSO and the host of Next Level University, a global top 100 self-improvement podcast with over 2,000 episodes that has been reaching more than 1 million people across the 175 countries. I'd like to bring on to the show and welcome to the Battle Harder podcast, Kevin Palmieri.
What's happening,
Kevin,
buddy?
Thanks for being here. I'm glad that we finally get this recording session done. A lot of times we get so busy in life that we have to move things all over the place, right?
We do, unfortunately. I'm grateful that you and I have our time together, and I'm excited to see what our time creates, my friend.
Sounds good. So before we get started, just give us a little bit about who you are and what do you do?
So today I am the host, as you said, of Next Level University. I do a podcast episode every single day on holistic self-improvement to help people level up their life, their love, their health, and their wealth. And we've been very lucky and privileged to have built a business from that. So I'm either recording podcast episodes for us, recording podcast episodes like this with other people, or coaching. Those are really the three things that I do on a daily basis now.
Man, you said every day?
Every day. Yeah, we do an episode every day for that podcast. And then I also have another podcast that's one episode a week that is all about podcasting.
The podcast on the podcast about the podcast.
It's very meta.
You know, I've found, that's kind of funny because I found that most podcast hosts, we also guest, especially to get our message out if we're doing something in the realm of coaching or trying to help people. But then we also end up doing like multiple shows. So I'm actually starting a live show that will be live on Thursday nights on YouTube. And I have another Coach Rob that I was on his podcast, and we're going to be doing a show together. So it seems like most podcast hosts, they can't just stop at one. It's like getting a tattoo. You just have to get more and more and more and more.
100%. Yeah, it is a dangerous hobby because nobody is stopping you from starting as many podcasts as you want, just like nobody is stopping you from getting all the tattoos you want. Other than, I think the difference is tattoos cost a lot of money. Podcasting is free to get into, at least.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a low barrier entry into podcasting. You could literally just start with a cell phone in front of your face and there you go. And we might have to have a whole nother episode just on podcasting, but let's get into a little bit about you growing up and your mental health struggles and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I was raised by my mom and my grandmother. I didn't know my dad. I didn't meet my dad until I was 27. And I think I internalized the fact that my dad wasn't there as my fault. I think a lot of us probably do that unconsciously. I didn't really realize that I had anything in terms of mental health struggles until I was in my mid-20s.
Wow.
For me, life was quote-unquote normal. I didn't go to college. I just started working a lot of what would be considered dead-end jobs probably. And I think that's where I built kind of like this imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'll never amount to anything. When I first started to connect with the fact that I had something going on from a mental health perspective, I was home from work one day. My girlfriend came home and I said, I had a really weird thought today. And she said, what? And I said, if this is what life is, if it's this dark, dull existence, I don't know if I want to do it. And I didn't have a plan. I wouldn't say I was suicidal. I was just depressed.
Right.
And she said, have you ever thought of going to therapy? And I laughed. I said, no, I don't need it. Don't need it. I'm good. I feel good. I'm good. She eventually talked me into going. And that was the first time where I heard someone say, no, you definitely have some anxiety. You definitely have some depression. You definitely have some PTSD, and talking to someone would be really, really constructive for you. And that was the first time I ever understood that there was something there. Then eventually later in my journey, I achieved quote unquote success financially. I competed in a bodybuilding show and won my bodybuilding show. My girlfriend at the time was a model. I had a nice car. I had a new apartment. I had all the things, but I still ended up sitting on the edge of a bed contemplating suicide a couple of years later.
Wow.
So it really came full circle where I realized at one point I had some stuff going on with mental health. I thought I could achieve my way out of it. I achieved my way into realizing that you can't get out of it. And then that kind of became the next crux of the journey, so to speak.
And I love that. And I think, so for the people listening, I want you to know that Kevin says some very important things. I too I didn't commit suicide. I did have suicide ideations. I did have a plan to kill myself. But there has been multiple times in my life where I was just, same thing, just sitting there in that darkness, feeling miserable, feeling sad about myself, and thinking to myself, like, man, exactly what he said, if this is all there is to life, do I really want to be here? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of us feel that way sometimes, whether it's through childhood trauma or adult trauma or military trauma. Like, we all have trauma. What I'm finding out is almost everybody has some form of trauma. Now, some people deal with it better than others, but we're all kind of in the same place. So if you're having these thoughts of sadness and depression and anger, one, it's okay. You're not alone. You're not broken. We all have these thoughts. But even I've been to talk therapy. I've been on medication. So I think, try therapy first. Both Kevin and I are coaches, but I don't think even with Kevin that we're going to deny that sometimes mental health practitioners is good for a person. Sometimes medication is good for a person. Just because something didn't work for me or work for Kevin doesn't mean it's not going to work for you. So if you can identify that you have a problem first, then get help and figure out what works and doesn't work. Would you like to touch on that a little bit?
Honestly, we literally have moved on from clients and sent them to people in our network who are licensed therapists, because it gets to the point where it says, honestly, I feel like it would be more constructive for you to go talk about something and talk about your past as opposed to really trying to redesign the future. So I can't speak to that enough. And I just think it's the conversation of, it's brave to do the thing that scares you. Mm. I know so often people have equated in the past going and seeking help as weakness. By definition, it's strong to do the thing that's challenging.
Right.
So do the thing, because you will be grateful that you did, whatever that is. If it's hiring a coach, whatever, do the thing that future you will be grateful that you did. I did not want to go to therapy. I had so many reservations, Same. Right? I left that day saying, oh my goodness, I feel so good now that I have this self-awareness, and it became one of my favorite things. And even though right now I'm in a really good place mentally, I am seeking out a therapist because I haven't had one in a few years. And I think it's time for me to go explore that. So I will always be a fan, and I will always recommend it to the person who is ready for it. I can't speak to that highly enough.
And like for me, I have a little bit of a different perspective. I never quite found a therapist that I could like align with or talk to. And for me, some of the medications for my PTSD and sleep and stuff, that has helped me substantially. So I stay on the medication. Maybe Kevin, you can attest to this. I don't think our depression or our mental health ever goes away. We just find better tools, better ways to deal with it. And I like for you, kind of going into maintenance, we know with fitness and everything that you have to maintain that, right? So you're maintaining your mental and emotional health by continuing on with a therapist. And I like that. So essentially you were balling, you had the girlfriend, the car, bodybuilding, everything. Did something happen or change because you were still sad? Like, what was going on with that?
Yeah, I think I don't think anything changed. I think I just masked it for a long period of time. I think it was always trending downhill. I just didn't realize how fast. That was one part. The other part was, in retrospect, the bodybuilding show did so much damage to me. that was when I got really anxious. I mean, I had to control every environment. I didn't know what was going to be for dinner. It was just mayhem. I definitely got way more depressed because my hormones were tanking because I wasn't eating enough. And I'm doing cardio for an hour every day and exercising every day. So after my bodybuilding show, my girlfriend at the time sat me down and she said, "Hey, I'm leaving. I feel like you're kind of a shell of yourself. I have really big goals. I have really big aspirations. And I just don't feel like you're the man who can support me in that."
Wow.
And she was right. She was 100% right.
But I bet that crushed you at the time. Like
It was terrible. And it got worse because she said, "I was going to break up with you last month, but I was afraid if I did, you might take your life."
Oh, wow.
And again, it wasn't like toxic the way she was doing it. She cared and she was worried.
Right.
And I remember I sat back and I remember thinking, Rob, how did we get here? How did I get to this point? I don't understand how this happened. So she ended up leaving and I didn't take action quick enough. So I went to therapy. So I was going to therapy. I found a therapist. Cool. But I fell back into that same trap of, well, my girlfriend's leaving and now my bills are going to double. I have to go find a way to make even more money. So I went on this journey to make even more money. And then I think eventually the pain that I had from her leaving just kind of went away. And I just fell into the trap of, well, now I'm just going to try to make as much money as possible. And I did. I made the most money I'd ever made. Realized that didn't fix the problem yet again. And then in 2017, which was the year after all that happened, I started a podcast because I wanted to have cool conversations with cool people. That was it. Like, let me just do that. That'll be awesome. Fell in love with podcasting, clearly, but I still had to go to this job that now I started to hate because I had so much resentment for the fact that I was grinding my face off to make money that didn't fix the problems.
Yep.
So I start calling out of work. I start leaving the job sites early. I start showing up late, right? I am just out. And this was a job that required a ton of travel. So I spent the year prior where I made the most money, I spent 10 months out of the year living on the road. So every week, just staying in hotels. So it got to the point where I was homesick before I even left. I was just tapped out. Eventually, the day that changed everything, it was a straw that broke my back. I woke up in a hotel room 6 hours away from where I lived. I was getting ready for work that morning. Alarm clock went off. I sat up, slid to the edge of the bed. I'm lacing up my work boots. And the best way to explain it, Rob, is there's 10 televisions on in my head at the same time, and every single one is on a different station.
Yep.
One is saying you're stuck at this job forever. You're never going to get lucky and get a better job than this. Never. That's never going to happen.
Limiting beliefs.
Limiting belief, definitely. If you ever left, what would your friends say? A lot of significance tied up in making a boatload of money. That helps. If you ever left, what would your family say? Your family's super proud of what you've accomplished. And then the loudest thing was, do you really think you're going to be a podcast? That's what we're going to do? We're going to fly off into podcast land? That doesn't seem very realistic, right? It doesn't seem like a realistic plan B. And that was my rock bottom basement moment where I thought, well, if I was just to take my life, I would take all my problems with me and I wouldn't have to figure this out. That's where things really, really, really pivoted. Now, I'm very lucky and I feel very blessed that I had supportive people around me that I felt safe in reaching out to.
Support is huge.
It was everything. And I reached out to a friend of mine who's now my business partner, and he gave me some really sound advice and a great shoulder. And then I ended up leaving that job a few months later and becoming an entrepreneur, which worked in a lot of ways, but also made some things worse. But yeah, it was a series of, I don't feel successful. If I feel successful, I'll feel better. I do feel successful, but maybe I'm not successful enough yet. Okay, I'm the most successful I've ever been. Somehow I feel worse. There has to be more to this. And that became the next kind of journey, the next leg in the journey, at least. Yeah,
I definitely have a similar perspective. So after I left the military, I became a federal police officer. And my last duty station of 6 years was at the Veteran Affairs Hospital. And just burnt out. Like, just kind of the same conversation in my head, like, you have to do something else. This isn't self-sustainable. This isn't beneficial. Everybody's miserable. So if everybody's miserable, it's making you miserable, which is hurting your mental health. Started calling out. For those that don't know or haven't heard, as I guest on podcast or even on this podcast, I don't think I've said on this podcast yet, I actually do acting. I love acting. And a couple years ago, acting was very prevalent here in Florida, where like I was doing TV shows like every week, literally. And I just was blessed to do a public service announcement for mental health, suicide, and veteran suicide that I got to act in. So that was pretty awesome. And I just recently did a TV show that's not even out yet as a featured extra as a Russian thug. But I was leaving to do acting jobs. I was like, I just kind of gave up being a cop. I'm like calling out all the time. I'm using all my vacation time. And it wasn't that I was trying to be some big famous actor. It was a distraction, right? It was a distraction from everything that I didn't want to deal with. And in 2018, my mom died, and work didn't give me any bereavement leave. They're like, you used up all your leave, you used up all your time. We're not giving you time off. You can take leave without pay. And I'm like, leave without pay? At the time, I had a wife. I had 3 kids. You're telling me I can't go, pay respects to my mom and get my paycheck? And they're like, no. So I took leave without pay, grieved how I had to grieve. And I came home and I spoke to my new wife. We've been together 8 years, married for 1 year here in a couple of days. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And we had that honest conversation. This is where I say support's huge, because even when I make dumb decisions, my wife always has my back. So that's a pretty amazing thing. Now, she'll tell me, I told you so, idiot. But for the most part, I have that support system. And so I wanted to start a gym. That was always my dream, my passion. I thought that's where the universe, God, wanted me to go. And so my wife took out all the financial responsibility, gave me the money. I built a gym. I ran that for 4 years. Unfortunately, I lost that due to COVID, which got some more depression and issues. And my wife goes, I'm like, what are we going to do? We need money. Like you said, you need money. You're working a job. You can't just say, I'm going to be a podcast host or I'm going to start a business without some sort of action plan. You have to have purpose and intent in everything we do, right? So she says the ultimate wrong decision at the time, why don't you go back to being a cop? I'm like, okay. So I go get state certified in Florida. I go become a cop. And I only lasted in the state of Florida for 4 months. Second day, a young man took his life. I had to deal with that. I had to process the scene. I had to take the gun out of his hand. And then on top of that, dealing with all the real world bad guys that hate cops, that don't want to talk to you, that want to steal from you, that want to murder you, so I'm putting more trauma on my mental health because the sake of needing a job. And I come home and I'm in tears. I'm just in tears. And my wife's like, what's wrong? I'm like, that disappointment factor, right? We don't want to disappoint the people we love. I'm like, babe, I can't do this anymore. I'm 46. It's not good for my mental health. I'm in that same situation, same environment. Everybody's miserable. Everybody hates it. And there's no upward mobility. Money was good, but money wasn't everything at that point. So she says, well, what are you going to do now? And I'm like, I don't know. And I thought about it. And the one thing that my gym community always said to me was, man, you're the best coach I ever had. How you speak to us, it resonates with us. You lead us with purpose and value. And I was like, oh, crap, I can help people. I can still coach. I didn't need that brick and mortar business, right? I can still now I can reach out to literally anybody. I can get on stage and tell my story. I can write a book. I can do a podcast. And that's how I got into the Battle Harder podcast. But to get on into what we're going into next, I had to change my mindset, right? And I had that imposter syndrome too. And even now, because I only started my business in January, I'm not really, besides the clothing side of my brand, I'm not really making a lot of money, but I always get these things from the universe or God, right? Yesterday, a man messaged me on LinkedIn. He's like, man, I just want to let you know you inspire me, and I'm losing my job and this is happening and I just don't know what to do, but you keep me going. I don't know this guy from Adam. He's just looking at my post, right? So I'm like, okay, I guess I got to keep going. I got to keep doing this. And I think a lot of times we have to pay attention to those signs. No matter what you believe in, you have to have your ears, eyes, and heart open to listen to what you're being shown So you can have purpose, and you can have value, and you can take this leap of faith to get out of that shitty job or that shitty marriage or whatever, and build a life of abundance and purpose. So would you like to touch on that?
One of the interesting things about imposter syndrome and the internal versus external thing is, this is my question for you. When he reached out and said that, did it help you believe in yourself and what you were doing a little bit more?
Oh, obviously. Anytime I take a phone call and someone says, man, I love what you're doing, or like, I mean, the mental health issues always get involved with this stuff anyway, right?
Yeah.
So even when I just need a reconfirmation from my wife in time, I'm like, babe, I'm not really helping you pay the bills right now, but I'm trying my best. And she's like, no, everybody, I see what people say about you. I see how you carry yourself. Her own father, I was able to speak at a behavioral health conference, and I put that on my podcast, audio only. And my father-in-law actually listened to it. And then this Father Day, he's like, man, your talk was amazing. You speak very well. I like what you're doing. So getting his respect, like, that just gave me more signs. Like, okay, keep going. So definitely, yes. Anytime someone says, hey, maybe for you too, like, this podcast is therapy for me. Like, every time I tell somebody that overcame a story, and like, a lot of times, I want to tell the public this, like, a lot of times, whatever you're going through, there's always someone out there worse. And I've personally talked about it on my podcast with my guests. And then it gives me that gratitude where I'm like, man, my life's not really that bad after all. Like, why am I complaining all the time? So I think that helps as well.
Yeah. It was interesting for me because it was almost the opposite, where when I started the podcast, I felt like I didn't know anything. And all things considered, compared to today, I didn't know much.
Right.
But we got really good feedback. We had some pretty big guests on pretty early, and we got amazing feedback. And they said, you guys are like really good at this. You guys are going to be super successful. It was always hard for me to take what somebody said about me and run it through the filter of how I felt about the thing that I did. So it almost made it worse for me for a long, long period of time. And then eventually, what helped me the most when it came to imposter syndrome, I was getting ready to go on a podcast, Rob, like a year ago. The person who hosted this podcast was a doctor for NASA. So they were a space doctor. I didn't even know that was real. I thought that was
Me
fake.
either. I just learned something new today.
Right? So this person's a space doctor. Here I am in the waiting room as somebody who has a high school education and then a life education. And I remember thinking, there must be another Kevin Palmieri. There's no way it's supposed to be me. There's no way. But I checked back on the most recent and relevant proof that I had that went against what my emotions felt. 2 weeks before that, I went on some doctor of psychology podcast where I had the same thing. There's no way I'm supposed to be on here. And the episode went amazing, and that person and I stayed connected, and it was great. To your point, when I was telling my story about the limiting beliefs, a lot of imposter syndrome is just the limiting beliefs that surround us. And here, the problem is that it perpetuates. So let's say I have the opportunity to go on that podcast. I look back at the last time I had an opportunity to do something that scared me. I didn't do it. Now I have no recent relevant proof, and I'm not going to do it. And that becomes a cycle. So unfortunately, when it comes to fear and when it comes to imposter syndrome, I think the only real way to work through it is to do the thing that scares you. And you can have hacks on how to make sure you do the thing that scares you, but I haven't overcome it yet. I'm just way better friends with imposter syndrome than I think I've ever been. Because in theory, I want to get opportunities beyond what I'm currently capable of. And then I want to learn how to serve that opportunity. So if I'm not feeling like an imposter, I wonder if I'm not living in the right amount of humility based on the circumstance. It's something I'm working through in real time.
I'm right there with you. I mean, I have these. For the most part, I do have a limitless belief system, and it took me a long time to get to that point. But there's little things, I think, with the mental health issues, and like you said, even with dealing with trauma, but any form of success, any form of better relationship is scary, right? Like, it's not easy. But what I'm finding is, like you said, if you just jump into that trauma, if you just jump into that dark place, if you jump into that opportunity you get, you end up realizing like, oh shit, that wasn't as bad as I thought. And so even with the behavioral health conference, that was my first. So when I submitted my speaker proposal, it said clear, like in big bold, if you're not a mental health professional, a doctor, a psychologist, don't bother. We probably won't pick you. And for whatever reason, I'm like, no, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. And I wrote my speaker proposal and they accepted me. And I'm like, oh crap, now I have to go to this thing. Right. Like, and I'm preparing up to the last minute and I wasn't going to go. Honestly, I wasn't going to go. And my wife's like, look here, MFer, you better go or I'm going to beat your ass because you have this opportunity and you better take it. Like, you're building this brand on helping people with personal development. If you don't go do this workshop, then why are you doing this job? And so I pulled my big boy pants up and I went to the conference and I'm nervous as hell. And I'm like, man, I'm going to be talking in front of 60 people. Like, this is insane. And I'm reading my notes and everything. And whatever reason, something was like, dude, just talk. Like, just talk. And I think a lot of times the Nike slogan, you just do it. You just have to do it, right? So I threw my notes in the trash. I led from my heart. And, man, like the response I got, the applause I got, the questions I got, like, it gave me more opportunities. It solidified in me that, okay, I can speak in front of crowds. I can be on stage. It's going to be okay. And even with my trauma, like, I was scared to deal with it. I was scared to go into that very dark place. Like you said, I put on a mask. I didn't know how to change my mind. And my big aha moment was I was scrolling on social media and I saw something about gratitude. And the guy was like, just practice gratitude. And I thought it was stupid, right? I'm like, I'm finding out the more simplest things that are there is what actually works. It's not these big complicated things. Even with like fitness and parenting, like, it's simple. But we, mind screw ourselves over of getting things crazy and complicated and we think impossible. And so I went to bed and I was like, okay, 3 things I'm thankful for. I like my car, I like my wife, I like my house. And it was kind of like half-assed how I did it. But then I woke up that next morning, I'm like, okay, it's going to be a good day. And I just said that affirmation. And originally, as a guy who was so negative and dark, I'd have to be like, it's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good day all day, right? But just those 2 things alone, which is free and simple, completely brought me out of that dark place. Like I couldn't believe that this simpleness worked, right? And I think sometimes people, like, I guess they want us as coaches to solidify that information or to give them the guidance to say, hey, this works, because they're scared of being stuck in that dark place. They're scared of being an imposter. So what kind of started happening with you in your life that you started having those mindset shifts, and what were those mindset shifts?
Man, somebody recommended a book to me. And I think this is many people's first book. It was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That was the first book I ever read. And you know how you said you were kind of half-assing your gratitudes? I was listening to it on audiobook while playing MLB The Show on PlayStation 4. So I was doing a little bit of multitasking.
You were multitasking, man.
I was multitasking. And after I listened to that, it was like, okay, interesting. I feel like I took away some information. What do I do now? Somebody recommended a book called Mindsets by Carol Dweck. And this is all about the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And every time she would talk about the student who didn't want to raise their hand because they were afraid they were going to get made fun of or they were going to ask a dumb question, I was like, oh my goodness, that's me. Oh my goodness, that's me. Every time she talked about somebody who had a growth mindset of somebody who just, they raise their hand and they're okay with looking stupid in the moment because they know it'll help them get smarter over the long run. That's the type of person I aspire to be. Ooh, interesting. So I could see in real time where I was and where I wanted to get to. Wow. That book helped me so much. That was a massive shift for me. So that helped me build a little bit of confidence. I think the thing that probably helped my mindset more than anything was I started tracking habits. And one of the habits I started tracking was what we would call fear chasing. So every day I would try to go out of my way to do one thing that scared me a little bit. If I was ordering pizza, instead of doing it on the app, I would call. It's a little bit harder. It forces me to show a little bit more of my personality. It's a little bit outside of my comfort zone. Let me do that. And I just did that every day. And the things that seemed impossible eventually became possibilities. The things that seemed like I couldn't do them, eventually I did them every day. And as that evolved, I got the opportunity to do other things that scared me. And then, like you, I started speaking. Interesting. I can actually do this. So yeah, the simplest answer is I started getting in the arena where my biggest fears were. And if and when things didn't go right, it allowed me to practice the mindset that I had been working on through the habit tracking, through the reading, through the coaching. And it was like proof of concept in real time. And then I just kept rinsing, repeating that for the next however many years. I mean, I've essentially been doing that every day for the last 8 years. And that's the biggest difference between old Kevin and today Kev.
And so guys, for my community listening to this, I always tell you, like, I want you guys to rewind this back and play it as many times as you have to get that in your head, because this is the same things that I talk about all the time over and over again. It's the same times that most coaches who had some sort of pain point speak on and talk about. And even in my own coaching, if I give you a journal, like, once again, you have to lead with your heart and not with the fear or not what's within your mind, because most of the time, once you do that thing, you ask that girl out that you want to go on a date with, you ask your boss for a raise, you put up whatever money you have to do to buy that thing that you want. Once you get to that point of overcoming that adversity, that pain point, that stress, that issue, I'm telling you, it's never as hard as you think it is. Like, I was constantly in that state of mind of, oh, I can't do this because I'm going to fail. And I realized that once you jump in, so when I started my podcast, Kevin, it's literally, I think the first 15 episodes is me just ranting and raving, right? Like, I knew I wanted to put information out there. I didn't know how I was going to put information out there. And it's just a whole bunch of, don't put your kids on tablets at the dinner table. Don't use your cell phone while driving. Like, just me complaining about life's issues, right? And then magically, out of nowhere, somebody that I didn't know, that I guess they stumbled upon my podcast or my social media, a young man that's in the UK, he's like, hey, I just wrote a book called Built to Last. It talks about mindset and fitness. I think I could bring value to your audience. Would you like to have me as a guest? And I didn't even know how to set this up, but I'm like, okay, let's do it. And it was the best conversation I ever had. And I was like, oh crap, there's something here to talking about other people. And then I started having more guests and more guests and more guests. And now, man, between being on podcast and doing my podcast, I love this. And it's just now an extension of who I am and my coaching. And I do this because Kevin's providing you with valuable information. So, whoever watches or sees this episode, if you want to work with him, work with him. I don't gatekeep information. Everybody can win. There's enough money, enough clients, enough everything to go around. So if Kevin says something real to you, then connect with him and see how he can help you. How is fitness, even though you were a bodybuilder and you did bodybuilding shows, how is fitness still prominent or important in your life?
Oh, it is the anchor. Fitness is the anchor. I notice a drastic difference in my patience, in my resilience, in my focus on days where I exercise versus days that I don't. That's massive. I think fitness is one of the most humbling things ever of all time, because the dumbbells don't care. They just don't care. You're having a good day? Great. You're having a bad day? Doesn't matter.
Listen, okay, I'm going to preface this first. Kevin, I'm probably going to steal that and put it on a Battlefitted t-shirt because that's awesome. The dumbbells don't care. And that can literally mean so many things. Yeah, so you heard it first. The dumbbells don't care.
Yeah, it's very humbling. I think that's one of the things. It's very humbling. Martial arts is something I did for a long time, and there's something about grappling with someone who just can do whatever they want. You have to be humble in that. You can't ego up and try to protect yourself from that. So it's those things, and I think the gym is just a really good parallel for success in general. Can I, as a coach, help you get somewhere faster? Yes. But you will have to struggle, and you will have to battle, and you will have your own suffering. I cannot solve that for you. I cannot avoid that for you. I cannot save you from that. The gym is a really good parallel to that, because if you want to get better, you got to have more resistance. And the more resistance you have, the harder the journey is. So yeah, it just helps to keep me grounded and realize, like, I know online, to your point, there's a lot of like very sexy stuff you can do to get this result and this result. I've been doing the same exercise program since I was 16. It is the unsexy fundamentals that work. You just got to do them consistently. And I think, again, fitness is just a really good analogy for that.
So what do you think as far as things that are worth more or high value, that they're not instant gratification, it takes time?
I think it's everything. I think everything is that way. If somebody comes to you with an opportunity that is amazing, it most likely is going to crash and burn just as fast as the opportunity came to you. That's a piece of it. And I think the other piece of it is most of us don't know anybody personally who has gone viral. I know people who have gone viral. I know people who have gone viral and lost it. I know people who have gone viral and would have lost it if they didn't build a strategy because of it. And I know people who have gone viral that had characters that couldn't stand or handle the level of attention that they were getting. So there's also something to be said about that. I could give any podcaster out there the keys to our kingdom. Here you go. Welcome. If you haven't put in the reps behind the scenes, if you haven't learned about yourself, if you don't have the work ethic, if you don't have the self-awareness, you're not going to be able to sustain it. Success is hard. Sustaining success, I think, is harder than achieving it in the first place. And I think that's why it should take a long time to achieve, because then you're actually ready and you're able to keep the momentum going. If it was just given to you, you don't know how to get there and you don't know how to maintain the momentum. So at this point, I almost want it to take longer, because I went from a place of saying, when will it happen? Which I think we all should go through that phase. I think that's an important phase. To how do I make sure I'm ready when it does happen? And that's been a very important pivot for me, just to work on mastery, get better. And when the opportunity comes, hopefully I'll knock it out of the park. That's the goal.
That's amazing. And I think that, everything we do that we want, so to speak, whether it's abundance or a business or a beautiful relationship, we have to have purpose and intent. Without those two things, we're just kind of going through life half-assing everything. You have to really put purpose and intent. And I'm sure Kevin will agree to this. Even when we're journaling, right? We're practicing gratitude, or we're writing something down that scares us and how we're going to overcome it. You can't just say, I don't want to go to the store because I hate crap. Everything has to have step-by-step purposeful instructions. And I'm telling you this because I've learned firsthand that if I want to scale my business to $3 million a year, I have to make sure that first, is that realistic in the market that I'm in? Is it realistic in the niche that I'm in? And then I have to start saying, how am I going to get there? Right. And I think a lot of people in today's society, no matter with what they want, they just have this false sense of time, right? Like, oh, I want to lose 50 pounds in 2 months. Well, that may not be a real goal. So for my community, and you could touch on this after this, when you're doing goal setting, or you're trying to get that thing or whatever it is you're trying to do, you have to be able to logically figure it out step by step how you're going to get there. You can't just say, I want $1 million and then say, okay, give me $1 million. It just doesn't work that way. You have to putting in the reps. I say this all the time. You have to put in the reps. If you're in the gym and you want to have a 315 bench press, you have to put in the reps with the 135 pounds first. And then you scale up to the 225s, and then you maybe scale up to the 300. You have to put in the reps. Coach Rob didn't become Coach Rob. I said, one day I want to be a coach and help everybody. No, I lived a life through the military, through my work as a police officer, through the trauma that I faced, through my first failed marriage, through my kids not talking to me. I've been through hell and back, but at the same time, I never say, why me? I just say, what's next? I built this resilience that I really believe that the universe, God, whatever, has made me suffer, not because he's like, I hate you, suffer. No, because it gives me the strength, the power, the purpose to take those things and say, okay, I overcame this. This is how you can overcome this too. So would you like to touch on that a little bit?
If you can get through all that stuff, what's a 16-hour day of adding value into people's lives? you know,
Exactly.
on a microphone and a camera. Like, all things considered, this is relatively easy compared to a lot of the other adversities you've had to face. The thing that we've noticed, and has helped me a ton at least, is most people are convinced they have to set massive, scary goals. I think that's BS. I don't think it works for most people. So you seem like somebody who has undying self-belief. Yes, you should set giant goals that scare the pants off of you. Most people should sit down and say, okay, on a scale of 0 to 10, in this arena, how much confidence do I actually have? Level 4, let me set a level 4 goal. So instead of 50 pounds, which is a level 10 goal, you'd have to do this, and to accomplish it. Let's drop 50 to 10. And let's focus on losing 10 pounds in the next 10 weeks, which is reasonable. You can get your reps in. You can experience it. You can see what it's like. There's a little time to mess up. Let's do that. Then when we hit the goal, we can set a little bit of a bigger goal. And then eventually you're at a place where you're setting goals that would have scared you in the beginning, but they don't scare you as much anymore. Your brain is really intelligent. And if you sit down and say, all right, it's June, I think I could probably make $1 million in the next 6 months, even though you're making $1,000 a month now. Your brain knows that's not going to happen. It just knows, unless you're just gifted and you're the type of person. But that's just a very, 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 very small percentage of people.
Or you rob a bank.
Or you rob a bank, yeah. And don't do that. Don't do that. That's probably not good either. But I think that's a thing that, again, maybe this whole conversation is about the unsexy fundamentals. What people are talking about on social media isn't oftentimes real.
Yeah,
and it doesn't actually work the way they say it does.
Nope.
That's not how they got there. That's just what they're telling you. I know these people. I've interviewed these people. So, yeah, it's small, it's unsexy, and it's sustainable. And I think if you focus on what's sustainable. So you said this earlier. You said you do an episode every day. I didn't start there. I started with 1. And then I left my job and we went up to 2. And then eventually we built a team and it's 3 and then it's 4. And then eventually you're doing 6 and it's, well, this is my full-time job. What's one more? But that wasn't sustainable for me in the beginning. And now it is, but that's not where you start. The finish is not where you start. And usually it doesn't seem sustainable from where you're standing.
Definitely. And there's 2 things essentially said in there that I tell all the time. It has to be measurable and obtainable. Now, I have what I call BFG, big frickin' goals. But if I don't get there, it's okay because I set the smaller goals that I know I can win. The idea is, look, guys, you want to win. And the more you win, the more your brain's going to say, hey, he's winning. He's doing good. Like, I like this. Let's continue down this path. So don't be afraid. Like, if you're like morbidly obese, right, and you're scared to walk into a gym because you think people are going to judge you, you don't want to hire a trainer, just walk around the block. Do that a couple times, every day. And you keep doing it, 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 and eventually some of the weight's going to come off. And then when that stops working, then you go to, okay, what's next? Maybe I'm going to start lifting weights. Like, life isn't as difficult as people make it, and I definitely believe in the whole Instagram. I've been 100% authentic since the inception of building my Instagram. I believe in not hiding any secrets or making sure the camera looks a certain way. No, I am raw, gritty, do what I have to do. But most influencers, if you want to call us that, or coaches or whatever, the Lamborghini, they don't own it. Okay, the $1 million house, they don't own it. They're just doing photo shoots. They're like actors. They're just acting to make you believe that these things are real. So keep that in mind. Be very guarded of your heart, your mind, your body, and your soul, and what you consume, because it's more better for you to do your own research and make your own opinions and not follow along with what everybody else is doing. So, and I'm going to date my age, but I always attribute that to being plugged into the Matrix, right? Like, the Matrix is such an amazing movie because most of our life we're stuck in this simulation of thinking that this life we have is so mundane and just go to the 9 to 5 and then go home and go to sleep, like, and binge Netflix. And no, like, you can live a beautiful, purposeful, you just have to find that thing that you're passionate about and you love, and then you can do that for the rest of your life. I love helping people. I love coaching. I love the freedom of being able to get my son whenever I want, to go on vacation whenever I want. I have nobody that I have to listen to except the wife. But you have to, you have to, like, life is short. Time is short. Okay? You have to live. I mean, you don't have to. You can just go through life mucking about. But if you want a purposeful life, live with purpose. So before I ask you the final question, Kevin, where can they find you and connect with you?
Yeah, the podcast is called Next Level University. It's on all the platforms. It's on YouTube. We do an episode every day, so there's always a little kick in the butt if you need it. And then my email is kevin@nextleveluniverse.com. I'm happy to answer any questions you got. I do my own emails. I'm not going to charge you to answer questions. Please, anything I can do to add value, I'm there.
Awesome, and I liked how you threw that little flex in there. Like you were like, yeah, I'm just gonna flex, show the guns a little bit.
I'm trying to keep up with you, Rob. I'm trying to keep up with you, brother.
Whatever, man. Man, I wish you were in Florida, man. We could go do a workout and just film that. That would be pretty awesome.
That would be awesome. Next time I'm down.
So my final question before we close out the show, and first of all, man, amazing conversation. I love when I'm with people on the same wavelength and same journey, and it's a beautiful thing because it means that the information is real and it works, right? So what is your definition of turning pain into progress?
My definition of turning pain into progress is taking the tools, the skills, and awarenesses that you have had to build to overcome adversity to then turn those into the foundations of whatever you're building after. So this entire business, the entire podcast, my relationship, my fitness journey, all of that is built on what I learned when I was really, really, really struggling. It's not a coincidence that I learned the most about money when I had the least money. It's not a coincidence that I learned the most about relationships when I was so lonely I couldn't even describe it to you. I don't think those are coincidences. I think for so many of us, going through pain creates the necessity to learn things that we just never would if we were crushing life. And the stuff we learn allows us to crush life later. So I think, yeah, that would be my definition. And that's essentially been my journey. So I can't imagine a better definition coming from me personally.
That's awesome. And guys, as usual, everybody's guest connections, links, anything that they're working on will be available in the show description on YouTube. The Battle Harder podcast is literally available on every dang podcast platform known to man right now. So like, comment, subscribe, listen to it wherever you want. And guys, Kevin provided an overwhelming amount of value. So if you need to get in touch with him, get in touch with him. Rewind, scroll, take notes, whatever you need to do. But essentially, we're both saying the same things. You have to choose your heart. This is my final thoughts, right? Being upset, angry, frustrated, depressed, miserable is hard. Being happy, successful, honest, having integrity is hard. But which one is going to be better, right? The miserable guy or the happy guy? You have to choose your heart. And that comes with everything in life. You can literally take everything in life, being obese, being in shape, eating healthy, eating like crap, feeling good, feeling bad. Choose the hard that's going to propel you forward in life and give you passion and purpose. Kevin, honored to have you on the show. I appreciate it. And as I like to tell everybody,
appreciate you.
Always be fit for battle. Thank you.
You've just heard another battle-tested conversation. Now it's time to take action. If this episode lit a fire in you, subscribe on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, or YouTube so you never miss a moment that could change your life. Want to go deeper? Connect with Coach Rob at Battlefitted Brand. For coaching, gear, and tools to help you turn your pain into progress. Remember, life will test you, but you're built to battle harder. Until next time, stay locked in, stay ready, and keep showing up.